Everybody knows that the Carolina Panthers were awful last year, but in the 2024 NFL Draft, they made a significant upgrade to the receiver room. They went out and got a guy who could be the number one target for Bryce Young, and his name is Xavier Legette. At one point, he was not really supposed to be anything though. While he did grow up down the street from Charlotte, he was just your average 3-star recruit for quite some time. He was also a benchwarmer at South Carolina for nearly 4 years before he finally broke out in 2023 and became one of the best players in school history. Some people like to compare him to DK Metcalf, and he's a guy with significant upside and could take the league by storm if given the proper opportunity. In today's video, I want to introduce you to Xavier Legette. We're going to talk about his up and down crazy career at South Carolina and his fit with the Panthers. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let me know what rookie I should cover in my next video, and also don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of Xavier Legette. In order to understand how Legette got to this point, we first need to go back in time. Honestly, he had been a local football star since he was 10 years old, and that game when he was scoring touchdowns at the Mullins Recreation Department. That's a town located in South Carolina. When he first got on the football field, he was actually a running back, and he tried to emulate his favorite player, Marshawn Lynch. When he eventually got to Mullins High School, he was the best athlete on the team, and many knew he had a shot to one day play at college. As a sophomore in 2016, Legette would catch 44 passes for 733 yards and 8 touchdowns. This led to a bunch of college programs being interested in him, and that was for multiple reasons. This was because of his combination of size, speed, change of direction, and athleticism, plus pretty good stats. He got interest from several Division I schools, including both Clemson and Virginia Tech, and his first offer would come from Coastal Carolina. But he would be moved positions in high school as he would go from a wide receiver to a quarterback by the end of it. He said, quote, "It was a big change. I played receiver my 9th through 11th grade before they would decide to move me to quarterback. As a senior, Legette would rush for 1,800 yards with 19 touchdowns, while also passing for nearly 900 yards and 14 touchdowns as well. From there, he started to gain more offers and was listed as a 3-star recruit. Eventually, as he started to visit schools, he had a ton of interest in South Carolina. On one particular visit to Columbia, South Carolina, he ended up meeting with receiver Deebo Samuel, and the two have stayed in touch ever since and have even worked out together. He said, quote, "There wasn't anything that kept me from committing, but I just wanted to take a little bit more time to process everything." It would later end up happening though, as he would choose the Gamecocks over offers from Tennessee, Coastal Carolina, East Carolina, and Tulane. Why the Gamecocks? Well, he said, quote, "I feel like it's the best fit for me. It's a great environment and I love the atmosphere there. It's by far the best place for me, and it's very close to where I'm from, and my family would get to see me more often than they would if I were to go somewhere else." He wasn't in an interesting situation though. On the weekend before Christmas, he made the announcement that he had signed with South Carolina and that he was going to be able to enroll and be a part of their 2019 class. Originally, he was almost get a gray shirt and be a part of their 2020 class, but there was a change up in the roster. He said, quote, "We had a change in the recruiting process, and I'd like to say I'm happy to say I'll be staying home to play football in my state." He ended up being a late addition to South Carolina's class, as he had been wanting to commit to them ever since he had gotten an offer from Will Muschamp, but because of the numbers in his class, Muschamp wanted him to wait until August to enroll so that he would count for the 2020 class instead. All of that would change around Christmas time though, when Muschamp would call him and ask him to sign now and enroll this summer. It was an obvious yes. He said, quote, "Coach Muschamp called me yesterday, and when he first got on the phone, he asked me if I was ready to be a Gamecock. He didn't tell me they made a way for me to be a Gamecock, he just asked me that, and then started breaking everything down, and that's how it was made." Over the years, he had transitioned from running back to quarterback to receiver, and he made his mark as a burner with the ability to stretch the field and make big plays. What did scouts think? Well, he's a guy that had combine-like numbers for a receiver in our camp. We watched him progress in his senior year as a quarterback, and he's really special with the ball in his hands. We got to watch him play basketball, and he was a guy who played the entire game above the rim. He's an explosive athlete and a guy we're really excited about. 24/7 Sports would agree, as according to them, Legette was a 3-star recruit, the number 39 athlete, and the 706th best player in the class of 2019. So how did he end up doing at South Carolina? Well, let's take a look. When Xavier arrived at South Carolina, there honestly wasn't that much hype to him. In 2019, he'd see action in 11 games and caught 9 passes for 80 yards and a touchdown. He also had a couple of kickoff returns. In 2020, as a sophomore, he would end up starting 6 games before he would have injuries for the final 4. He ended up catching 7 passes for 113 yards. In 2021, he'd once again make 4 starts and had a total of 8 catches for 63 yards and a touchdown. He ended up getting injured in an off-the-field accident, and his best moment came with a game-winning touchdown against Vanderbilt. In 2022 as a senior alongside their new quarterback Spencer Rattler, he would start 7 games, catching 18 passes for 167 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay, so we just went through the first 4 years of his career, and he honestly didn't really do anything. His by far biggest moment of his first 4 years was when he returned the opening kickoff against Texas A&M, and that came in Week 8 of 2022. But as the season came to an end, Legette showed that he had some value. Against Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl, he ended up having 78 yards and 2 touchdowns with 7 catches. That got a lot of people excited, and he was one of those players who had an option to return with an extra year eligibility, and he decided to use it. He said, quote, "I think I'm going to come back for another year, and I feel like I haven't really done anything yet. Also, I'm just trying to get the season that I want." Well, that's what Xavier would end up doing. Despite being second fiddle to Antoine Wells Jr., Legette became the player he was expected to be, and became the number 1 option for them. South Carolina's wide receivers coach Justin Stepp said, quote, "I've coached 2 first-round picks, and Legette can do stuff that others can't. To me, he's the best receiver in the country." This is high praise from Stepp. He coached both DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks, both of which became first-round NFL draft picks. Legette's goal for the season was to, quote, "I'm trying to have at least 900 receiving yards and catch at least 90 passes." Things would start out really well for him this year, as against North Carolina and Charlotte, he caught 9 passes for 178 yards in their week opening loss. He'd followed it up with a monster season. He had 118 yards and a touchdown against Furman, had 7 catches for 70 yards in a loss to Georgia, 5 catches for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns in a win over Mississippi State, and then he went over the 100-yard mark against Florida. That was the first 6 games of the season, and at this point South Carolina was 2-4. While he didn't do much against both Missouri and Texas A&M, he would finish his career on a really high note. He had 9 catches for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns in a win over Jacksonville State, had 9 catches for 120 yards against Vanderbilt, had nearly 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against Kentucky, and then had 6 catches for 68 yards in a loss to Clemson. While South Carolina did try to rally to bowl eligibility, they would end up with a 5-7 record after their loss to Clemson. In total, Legette would finish with 71 catches for 1,255 yards and 7 touchdowns. South Carolina as a football program has not had that many 1,000-yard receivers, and he became the 5th receiver to do so. The last time that happened was when Pharaoh Cooper went for 1,000 yards in 2014. He said, quote, "It never really hit me. I just had a couple of problems that I dealt with at South Carolina that kind of stopped me from doing that. But this year, I feel like I hit the point that I wanted to, and I succeeded." While maybe not that many people were watching South Carolina football this year because of their losing record, Legette really did put on a show. He showed his insane athleticism, showed he could be a true receiver 1, and showed that he had NFL-level skills. Currently, according to NFL Mock Database, he's currently projected as a 2nd-round pick and has an 18% chance of being taken in the 1st round. His consensus is the middle of day 2, but some think he could be much better. Overall, he has insane measurables. He ran a low 4.3 in the 40-yard dash, and that combined with his size and height is something we have not seen since DK Metcalf. He excels in making contested catches and is also an extremely physical player. He's both a deep threat and a red zone target, and he has that athleticism, has the production, and also has the speed. The one big knock on his game is that he only really played 1 significant year of college football, and some will wonder if he was just a 1-year wonder, or if he could actually be a unicorn in the NFL. He still needs to work on his footwork and explosiveness, but he has as much upside as any receiver in this year's class, and according to NFLDraftBuzz.com, they say he has more upside than any receiver not called Marvin Harrison Jr. That is extremely high praise for this guy, and overall, it's a pretty crazy story. He was a benchwarmer for most of his career, was lightly recruited coming out of high school, and then after one explosive season, went from someone no one cared about. With the Carolina Panthers desperately needing to improve their receiver room, they decided to make a switch with the Buffalo Bills. They would get the last pick of the 1st round, and they would end up selecting Legette. This is a homecoming-like story for Xavier, as he grew up very close to Charlotte, and now he'll get to play just down the street. He ended up being taken with that 32nd overall pick, and the Panthers got what they want, and the Bills got what they wanted as well. They ended up taking Keon Coleman from Florida State, so it seems that both sides win here. Bryce Young will definitely need Xavier's help if he wants to have a decent career, and Legette has an opportunity to come in and play right away. He will join a wide receiver room that already has a couple of decent names, as they have Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen, plus their big-time draft pick Jonathan Mingo from last year. Legette will find a way on the field, and the Panthers general manager is extremely impressed by Legette. He said, quote, "He definitely has that dog mentality about him. He's a great young man, but you can tell he has that look in his eye. I think he's not only a special player, but a special person. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, and he's physical, and he has a lot of qualities that we just love. Apparently, they had been locking in on him for quite some time, and they talked to South Carolina's receivers coach, Rob Moore, and he told them that it would be worth the pick. The main word that the Panthers keep using to describe him is versatile, as Legette will pretty much be able to do everything. Special teams, jet sweeps, out of the backfield, slants, anything, Legette can pretty much do that, and Bryce Young will be happy to have him next fall. But what do you guys think? If you're a Panthers or a South Carolina fan, what do you think of Xavier Legette? How do you think he will do this upcoming season? And who's another rookie I should take a look at in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about Quinyon Mitchell. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.